This is Jason with Chicago News. When you get delivery of a luxury car, you get what's called white glove service. We got this 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander. It's a very different kind of glove. As you can see, this is a pretty compact SUV, especially when you consider this has 3 rows inside. Also, it's a pretty handsome looking truck. As you can see with the third row folded out, you don't get a lot of third row space or cargo space. So there is a compromise with this compact of an SUV having this third row. It's there when you need it, but you can't really use it every day. Now that we're nice and toasty warm inside this Outlander, we can see some of the features this SEL version has. We've got a nice heated steering wheel here, a heated seat. Again, as we've said before in some of these Mitsubishis, the switches for the heated seats, you know, they seem a bit dated and they're in a bit of a weird place. They're kind of tucked under the armrest here. It would be a lot nicer if it was either part of the HVAC controls or maybe on the door. Speaking of those heated seats, obviously there has to be wiring to connect to the seats. When you enter the car, you can actually see a gap beneath the seat and you can see some of those wires hanging out. It just feels like the build quality isn't quite up to what we'd hope for. The other thing about that gap under the seat is, you know, we're in a pretty tall vehicle. I'm 6'3", my head's pretty close to the roof here. I've lowered the seat as much as possible, but there's still quite a bit of room under the seat. You know, I just wonder why the mechanism doesn't allow it to go a little bit lower, because I sure would like to be a little bit lower in here. Last year we tested out the V6 version of this Outlander. Here we have the 2.4 liter inline 4, 166 horsepower, which frankly isn't enough for a vehicle this size. All-wheel drive, SUV, big heavy car. This also has a CVT, so you know it's supposed to keep it in that optimum torque band, but this just is underpowered. And one of the things you get with that is a lack of efficiency, because this engine's working overtime all the time to pull this around. And we're averaging combined driving about 18 miles per gallon. Really subpar considering some of the competition that's available. This is rated at 25 city, 30 highway miles per gallon, but we're not even seeing over 20 miles per gallon. We're seeing just over 18 in mixed driving. So that extra weight that this is carrying around doesn't even really let this get to what they say it does. So that's a big gap and a big difference between claimed mileage and actual. As far as CVTs go, this one actually feels decent. When you put your foot down, there's not a big lag between, you know, that action and the car actually taking off. And they've really tuned the throttle pedal to give the appearance of a lot of torque. So you're getting all of your power with just maybe 20% of the throttle pedal. It's really when you dip into the throttle and you floor it, you realize it doesn't do much more at full throttle than it does at half throttle. They're using some different programming and different mapping of those to make it feel more powerful than it really is. Some of the other features this SEL package gets you are a couple of active safety features. You've got blind spot monitors, there's forward collision alert and emergency braking, as well as lane alert. It doesn't have lane assist, but it'll alert you if you're leaving the lane. We did find that the forward collision alert and emergency braking really interferes with radar detectors. It's kind of annoying if you're trying to use one. It's always kind of going off when that system is in use. Another gripe, and we've said this before about a couple of different brands, they give you lights on the dash that tell you all these systems are on. Again, much better if they do it the other way and tell you when a system is off. You don't really need a light glowing all the time telling you that the blind spot monitors are on. Getting back to build quality, the infotainment system, while it's certainly very functional, you've got Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, the actual screen interface looks pretty cheap. I mean, it looks kind of like a radio you might get off of eBay from China. The buttons look pretty, I don't know, I'm going to use one of my favorite words. The buttons are kind of janky looking. It really doesn't look like a quality system. Now, the audio is quite good. It's paired with Rockford Fosgate. There's a big sub in the back. you know, it's got a lot of sound quality, but just doesn't look like a refined system. The rest of the quality interior, you know, it's really not bad. You've got some decent materials or some soft touch. There's some nice looking glossy wood trim here on the doors. Again, as we talked about, some of the buttons really don't match. You've got things that look like they came from maybe different periods or different cars. Some of the buttons on the steering wheel and on the HVAC controls, you know, match up very well, but the door controls, especially these heated seat controllers, they really are a different kind of button altogether. I really wonder why there isn't more consistency among all the controls. Even though there's 3 rows of seats in here, which again is really convenient when you need to bring extra people, this isn't really a full-time use 3-row vehicle. The 3rd row itself is actually really small, and when you have it in use, there's barely any cargo room behind it. The middle row is pretty functional. You get a decent amount of space there. You can actually slide the seat back and forth. Because of this sliding glass roof here, you actually have a dip in the headliner right between the front and back row of seats. It actually hangs down low enough that it kind of interferes. If a backseat passenger is fairly tall and leans forward to say something to the people in the front, you could actually bump your head on it, so it does kind of interfere. Again, there's room under the seat in the back, so that 2nd row sits up higher. You know, I think Mitsubishi is feeling like people want to sit higher in an SUV, but they can't forget that there's taller people out there that are going to start to run into the roof. Now, a lot of people are going to use this for families. Their kids will be in the back, so that might not be an issue. Again, this is a smaller option for 3 rows. At $32,000, our test vehicle has a lot of features for that money. There's a lot of competitors in this class, so you really have to check them all to see which one suits you and which one has the quality and the features you want. This 2018 Mitsubishi Outlander is a great value. You don't really get enough power. You certainly don't get very good fuel mileage, and the build quality does leave a lot to be desired. You know, there's a lot of options out there. This isn't bad, but there's room for improvement.